What happens when you're told no to your children's happiness? That was the question that haunted me when the HOA banned my kids from the community pool. They said it was for safety reasons, but I knew it was pure spite. And you know what? That's when I decided to build something they'd never forget. It started with a simple summer day, the kind where kids splash and laugh, where neighborhood friendships are forged in chlorinated waters. My children were happy, carefree, exactly as children should be. But then came the notice, a cold, official letter stating that my kids were no longer welcome in the pool. The reason? Some fabricated safety concern that didn't hold water, quite literally. The board members, those self-appointed guardians of community standards, had decided that my children were too energetic, too loud, too different. They didn't fit their idea of perfect suburban children. And so, with a stroke of a pen, they stole summer from my kids. I remember the look on my daughter's face when I told her, the way her smile faded, replaced by confusion and hurt. My son, usually so boisterous, grew quiet. That night, as I watched him play in the backyard sprinkler, I made a promise that would change everything. The next day, I sat down with a blueprint and a vision of defiance, of turning their no into a resounding yes. I started with a small backyard pool, something simple and practical. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, that simple pool began to grow. It wasn't just about giving my kids back their summer. It was about sending a message. The HOA tried to stop me. They sent letters, held emergency meetings, even threatened legal action. But I stood firm. Every time they said no, I found a way around it. Every time they tried to slow me down, I sped up, and slowly, what started as a small backyard pool began to transform. The first slide was a testament to their disapproval. A giant water slide that could be seen from the street. Then came the wave pool, a direct challenge to their idea of what a backyard should be. I added a lazy river, a splash pad, even a mini wave machine. It wasn't just about creating a pool, it was about creating something they could never take away. As the water park took shape, something remarkable happened. Neighbors who once supported the ban began to stop by. They saw the joy on my children's faces, the laughter that filled the air. They saw a place where children could be children, unburdened by arbitrary rules and petty restrictions. The HOA watched in disbelief as their power crumbled. Their attempt to control and restrict had only fueled my determination. And as the final piece of the water park was put in place, I knew I had won, not just for my kids, but for every child who deserved to play without judgment. The water park became more than just a statement. It became a symbol of defiance against unnecessary rules, of standing up for what's right, of turning someone else's no into a resounding yes. And as I watched my children splash and play, I knew that sometimes the best way to fight injustice is to build something beautiful out of spite. The HOA's backlash was swift and vicious. They didn't just send letters. They launched a full-scale war against me and my family. Every day brought new threats, new lawsuits, and new attempts to destroy what I had built. Their first move was to claim that my water park violated every imaginable zoning law. They hired high-priced lawyers who spent weeks combing through every detail of the project. But I was ready. I had consulted with experts, obtained every necessary permit, and ensured that every aspect of the construction was legally sound. The neighborhood became a battleground. Some residents formed picket lines, protesting the eyesore in my backyard. Others organized support groups, bringing food and encouragement during construction. The media descended on our street, turning our private war into public spectacle. But the more they attacked, the stronger I became. Each lawsuit only fueled my determination. Each threat only made me more resolved to see this through. I began to see this not just as a fight for my children's right to play, but as a battle against the tyranny of petty rules and regulations. The HOA tried to use emotional manipulation, claiming that my water park would decrease property values and bring crime to the neighborhood. They painted me as a villain, a disruptor of their perfect suburban utopia. But their arguments fell apart under scrutiny. As the legal battles raged on, something remarkable happened. Parents from across the city began reaching out to me, sharing their own stories of HOA abuse and restrictions on children's play. My backyard water park became a symbol of resistance against oppressive community standards. The construction continued despite the obstacles. I added features that were specifically designed to counter their arguments: safety railings that exceeded industry standards, noise-reducing materials, and fencing that provided privacy without blocking views. Each new element was a middle finger to their attempts to stop me. The media coverage intensified as the project grew. News crews documented every milestone, from the installation of the first water slide to completion of the wave pool. The story went viral, attracting attention from across the country. But the real victory wasn't in the media attention or the legal battles won. It was in the smiles of the children who came to play, in the laughter that filled the air, and in the knowledge that I had created something beautiful out of spite, something that would stand as a testament to the power of defiance against unnecessary rules. And as the water park neared completion, I knew that the best was yet to come. The HOA might have tried to break me, but all they did was strengthen my resolve. Their attempt to control had only served to create something far greater than they could ever imagine. The media frenzy was something I never could have anticipated. What started as a local news story quickly escalated into a national phenomenon. Reporters from every major news outlet descended upon my neighborhood, turning my quiet suburban street into a media circus. At first, I tried to avoid the spotlight. I just wanted to build my water park and give my kids back their summer. But as the story gained traction, I realized that this was an opportunity to shine a light on the absurdity of HOA overreach and the importance of childhood freedom. The interviews came fast and furious. Television crews set up outside my fence. Paparazzi snapped photos of my children, and talk show hosts clamored for my story. I found myself fielding questions from reporters who couldn't believe that a simple backyard project had become such a spectacle. The media coverage was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it brought attention to the injustices of the HOA system. On the other, it exposed my family to unwanted scrutiny. My children became reluctant celebrities, their faces plastered across newspapers and websites. But through it all, I remained steadfast. I used every interview as an opportunity to speak about the importance of childhood play, the dangers of overregulation, and the need for communities to prioritize joy over rules. My message resonated with people across the country who had faced similar battles with their own HOAs. The media attention also brought unexpected allies. Architects, engineers, and even former HOA board members reached out to offer support and expertise. They saw in my story a reflection of their own frustrations with overzealous community management. The HOA tried to use the media attention against me, painting me as a villain and a disruptor. They released statements claiming that I was endangering children and destroying property values. But their attempts to spin the narrative only served to strengthen public support for my cause. As the water park neared completion, the media coverage reached a fever pitch. Documentaries were being planned, books were being proposed, and even a movie deal was on the table. But through it all, I never lost sight of the original purpose: creating a space where children could be children. The media storm had transformed my personal battle into a national conversation about the balance between community rules and individual freedom. And as the final touches were put on the water park, I knew that the true impact of this story was only beginning to unfold. The water park was no longer just a backyard project. It had become a living, breathing organism, evolving and changing with each passing day. The media attention had brought unexpected resources, skilled labor, and a sense of purpose that transcended the original goal. I watched in awe as the one simple plan morphed into something far greater. Volunteers from across the city began showing up, offering their skills and time to help with construction. Local businesses donated materials, seeing the potential for positive change in our community. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was emotional and philosophical. What started as an act of spite had evolved into a movement against unnecessary restrictions, for childhood freedom, and for the right to create joy in our own backyards. The HOA's power was crumbling, not just because of my defiance, but because their entire philosophy was being exposed as outdated and oppressive. Parents who had once supported their rules began questioning the status quo. Children who had been silenced found their voices. The water park became a symbol of hope, a physical manifestation of what could happen when you stand up to oppressive systems. It attracted people from all walks of life, each with their own story being told no by some authority figure. As the construction neared completion, I saw something remarkable happening in our neighborhood. Fences came down, backyards opened up, and community spirit began to flourish. People who had once been strangers were now friends, united by a common experience. The transformation extended beyond the physical structure. It changed the way people interacted with each other, the way they viewed community rules, and the way they prioritized joy and freedom. The water park had become a catalyst for change, a living testament to the power of defiance. The media continued to follow our progress, documenting every step of the transformation. But this time, the focus wasn't just on the conflict. It was on the positive change happening in our community. Stories of reconciliation began to emerge as some former HOA opponents saw the value in what we were creating. The transformation wasn't without challenges. There were setbacks, disagreements, and moments of doubt. But through it all, the vision remained clear: to create a space where children could be children, where joy was prioritized over rules, and where community trumped control. And as the final pieces of the water park fell into place, I knew that the true transformation had only just begun. The impact of this project would extend far beyond our backyard, touching lives and inspiring change in ways we could never have imagined. The day of the grand opening arrived, and it was nothing short of spectacular. The entire neighborhood turned out, along with media crews, supporters, and even a few former HOA opponents who had come to see the finished project. The atmosphere was electric. Children ran through the sprinklers. Parents cheered from the sidelines, and volunteers worked tirelessly to ensure everything ran smoothly. The water park was a sight to behold, a testament to what could be achieved when passion and determination collided with bureaucratic red tape. The opening ceremony was simple yet profound. I gave a short speech about the importance of childhood joy, the need for community spaces, and the power of standing up to unjust rules. The children were the true stars of the event, their laughter echoing through the backyard as they splashed in the pools and slid down the water slides. The HOA board was conspicuously absent, but their absence spoke volumes. They had lost the battle, and more importantly, they had lost the war for public opinion. The community had spoken, and their message was clear: joy and childhood freedom mattered more than arbitrary rules. The grand opening marked a turning point for our neighborhood. It wasn't just about the water park anymore. It was about redefining what community meant. Neighbors began organizing regular events, creating spaces for children to play, and challenging outdated regulations that stifle creativity and fun. The water park became a community asset, a place where families could come together, where children could be children, and where the spirit of defiance had transformed into something beautiful. Local businesses started sponsoring events. Schools organized field trips, and the park became a symbol of hope for communities across the country facing similar HOA issues. The media coverage of the opening was overwhelmingly positive. Stories focused on the transformation of our neighborhood, the power of community spirit, and the importance of standing up for what's right. The narrative had shifted from conflict to celebration, from defiance to unity. In the weeks that followed, something remarkable happened. The HOA began receiving requests for changes to their rules, not from me, but from other residents who had been inspired by the water park's creation. The community had found its voice, and it was demanding change. The grand opening wasn't just the end of the journey. It was the beginning of a movement that showed what could happen when people came together to challenge oppressive systems and create spaces for joy and freedom. And as I watched children play in the water that day, I knew that every obstacle, every lawsuit, and every moment of doubt had been worth it. The water park had become more than just a backyard project. It had become a beacon of hope for communities everywhere.